Alright, what's up everybody? I'm stoked because this is my first time ever teaching neuro. It's been a long time in the making. So let's see, do I just press this button? Oh, sweet. Alright, so there's the common, we call it the common quote, they say the windows are the eyes of the soul. That is true, but we also love to believe in neuro that they are the window to the brain. So a lot of our brain's processing power, a lot of what we do in our brain, most of it actually comes down to processing what we see with our eyes. Our eyes are constantly moving, our eyes are constantly receiving stimulus, even when we're not consciously receiving it. It's always going to be there. And so a lot of what our brain is doing is interpreting and modulating whatever is coming in and interpreting it to create the world around us and what we see. Let's see, is there a laser version? Oh, sweet. So, eye movement activity. While the movement of our skeletal muscles comes mostly from our frontal lobe, eye movements are involved with every single lobe of the brain, right? So everything that we do with our eyes ends up hitting every single other part of our brain, right? Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, it ends up hitting everything as we move our eyes and as we modulate and interpret what we get from the world. We get the same blood supply, comes off the ophthalmic artery, not super important right here. Alright, so how do we see? I mean, it's pretty clear that everything that we receive, everything that hits our eyes is actually just light energy. So we're not receiving images, we're just receiving photo transduction from photons in the air, right? It hits our eye, and it becomes light energy that is transmitted to the brain via the optic nerve. Everybody understands that, right? Yeah, everybody that goes super in depth into that, right? We got rods and cones, and that's transmitted to the brain. That's pretty straightforward. Cool. All right, so our eyes, why are eye movements important? If anybody has been to professional sporting events and things like that, a lot of times when athletes will get concussed or when they have a big fall or an injury or something like that, a lot of times they'll have athletic trainers or PTs go out and they'll do eye movements with them to test to see if they have a concussion, because that's a really quick way to gauge how the brain is functioning, right? So we can see how well things are working based upon how the eyes are moving and how it's integrating to everything else in the body. So based upon our eye function, we can see how the spine is functioning. I'll give an example. So what would happen if somebody's eyes are, let's say, turned slightly? What would happen and what would the clinical presentation of that be? I'll throw that out there to see if someone can kind of give us an idea. Somebody's eyes are tilted. What would we see? Yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah, so if somebody's eyes are tilted, we're going to have what we call the righting reflex. So the head will tilt the opposite direction to keep the world flat, right? That would be an issue. Then you're going to have somebody coming in and saying, oh man, my head hurts, my neck hurts. Why does it hurt all the time? Well, if we do some eye movements, we can see that their eyes are rotated. And we can very quickly see, okay, maybe it's not really a subluxation. It could be, maybe it's not, but maybe it's not a bone issue. Maybe that's not a cervical spine issue. Maybe it's actually an eye issue causing a cervical spine issue. So a lot of what we see is going to integrate into everything else. It's connected via the ventral horn cells. If you don't know what that is yet, those are going to be motor output to the body. So a lot of what we see in the eyes is going to come out through what our body does, right? Through our muscles, through our spinal musculature, and all those things. Same kind of thing. All right. So the different things that we might see with dysfunction. Obviously, vision is going to be one thing. If somebody can't see clearly, if they're seeing double, if they're seeing hallucinations, I don't know. That's obviously going to be an eye issue. But a lot of what it's going to be as well is going to be how well are their eyes moving. The muscles of the eyes, are they moving together? Is one eye moving? Does someone have what we sometimes call a lazy eye? Those are obviously things that we can see pretty quickly. Postural, is somebody's head slightly one way or the other way? If somebody has anterior head carriage, what is that going to do with their eyes? Things like that. What is their balance like? If somebody is falling, or somebody feels like they're falling, or feels like the room is spinning, their eyes are going to react according to that. So we're going to see all of those things in their clinical presentations. So this is a really long thing, we won't read all of it, but basically it comes down to this. An anxiety disorder or a migraine can sometimes be due to the inability of the eyes to maintain fixation on a target. So if somebody's eyes are constantly having to readjust for some issue, whatever that may be, that's going to end up causing disturbances, that's going to end up causing a lot of stress on the brain, resulting in anxiety possibly, like emotional anxiety, migraines, and a lot of other things that we can see in the brain might be due to eyes. So this is all just building up to say the eyes are really important. Everything that we see in the eyes is going to be a window into how our brain is functioning. All right, eye muscles. Without going back, can somebody name the 6 eye muscles?
Superior.
Okay, so we've got superior rectus,
Inferior.
inferior rectus,
Right rectus.
close, lateral rectus. If we've got a lateral, we've got a medial rectus. Okay, so we've got all of our rectus muscles, 4 of them. Then we've got the 2 outliers.
Superior oblique.
Superior oblique
Inferior.
and inferior oblique. All right. So we've got 6 intrinsic. Sorry. Yeah. Are they intrinsic or extrinsic? I don't know. That they're extra awkward. We don't know. So we've got 6 muscles, right, that move our eyeball. And then we've got one more as well that elevates our eyelid, the levator palpebrae superioris. We sometimes consider it as well because it's innervated by the same muscle that innervates a couple of our other eye muscles. So we include it as well. We're going to go through all of these though. So, as the name would imply, what does our superior rectus muscle do? It will pull our eye up, right? Inferior rectus will pull the eye down, right? Lateral rectus and medial rectus will pull according to how they say it. Lateral will pull the eye lateral, medial will pull the eye medial. That's pretty straightforward. They all connect on the front of the eye. And sometimes we use this example. So they pull from the back. Imagine this is your eyeball, right? Pupil's right here. Is the back of the eye. These muscles will attach at the back and at the front. So as it pulls, it will pull it up, down, or side to side. The 2 outliers are going to be the superior oblique and the inferior oblique, that we can see here. Right? And these ones attach obliquely, as the name implies, right? So they're going to attach at an angle, but they also attach at the back of the eye, not at the front. So a superior oblique will pull the eye inferiorly. We're going to go over that, why that is. Because it attaches at the back of the eye, when it contracts, it will end up pulling the eye down instead of up. Right? So superior oblique will pull the eye what direction? Inferiorly. And inferior oblique will pull the eye superiorly. And I think there is, no, here's a better explanation of that. So, if we see here, as this pulls the eye, the pupil will go down. Right? And as this one pulls, the pupil is going to come up. Any questions there? Pretty straightforward. Kind of counterintuitive, but it's pretty cool. So, these are the directions that we say, right? Elevate is going to be caused by the superior oblique. Depression caused by the inferior oblique. Abduction and adduction, lateral and medial rectus muscles. Now, these 2 may be words that you might not have heard before or seen. Encyclotorsion and excyclotorsion. We had mentioned earlier, if somebody has rotated eyeballs, I don't know if anybody knew that, but your eyes can actually rotate like this, right? Besides just moving side to side and up and down, they can rotate depending on how you move your head. And they will do that to keep you upright and stable. So, if we go back, we can see here that because these attach at an angle, as it contracts, they will rotate the eyes. Right? So superior oblique, we can imagine, it comes up and around the trochlea. There's a little bony little hook there in the skull. And because it attaches posteriorly and on the side, it will pull the eye down, and then at the same time will rotate the eye this way. Right? Same thing with the inferior oblique. It's going to pull the eye up, and then also rotate the eyeball. Okay? So a good way to remember that is that encyclotorsion is going to be from superior muscles. So the superior oblique is going to encyclotort. And excyclotorsion is going to be due to the inferior oblique. Yes, sir.
So with the superior rectus
Yep.
and the I guess the inferior oblique rectus, do they both work together to cause eyes to move up? Oh, to move up, sorry. Do they work together with the inferior rectus? I guess that one to move up. Yeah, eyes to move up. Does that work together with that?
Yeah, they'll work together. We'll go through that as well. Yeah, so some of them are going to be based by two muscles. They're going to be conjugate movements. So the inferior oblique and the superior, sorry. Yeah. Let's see, what is it? The superior rectus and the inferior, yeah, the inferior oblique and superior rectus are going to work together to elevate the eye. Sorry, I tripped up there. Yeah, because inferior oblique is going to pull the eye up, and the superior rectus will also do that. And we'll see kind of slightly how those go in different directions, but I like the way you're thinking. So a good way to remember which one's excyclotort and which one's encyclotort, learned this from Carissa. It is a very inferior thing to do to extort someone. You know, only inferior people would extort someone. So inferior oblique is going to excyclotort, which is going to be rotation towards the outside. Right? Alright, so going off of what you were saying, so we've got here how these muscles are going to pull the eye. We know that the eyes don't sit straight forward in our skull, so they're not sitting straight forward. They're actually at an angle. I want to say it's like a 45-degree angle. I think I learned that in one of my classes. But so 45-degree angle is what the eyes sit at. And so when that happens, these muscles are not going to pull straight up and straight down. They will pull at slight angles. So we can see here that the superior rectus isn't going to pull the eye straight up, nor is the inferior rectus going to pull straight down. But those are going to be slightly conjugate movements of the inferior rectus and the superior oblique, because it's going to pull it slightly out or in. So they will work together to do those kind of movements. Now, lateral and medial are going to be singular muscles. Only one. Medial rectus is going to adduct towards your nose, going cross-eyed, and the lateral rectus is going to pull it out towards the outside. All right, so we'll do a quick recap then. So which muscles are going to encyclotort? I saw a hand up.
I had a question.
Oh, no, okay, you're good. Go for it, dude.
So if the eyes are sitting like at an angle.
Yep.
Let's say I close my eyes, all my muscles just relax, my eyes into like that angle. And I open them up immediately, I'm seeing like double vision before my muscles correct and like bring me to like focus. You
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. Does anybody know that? If you relax your eyes completely, will they go at an angle outwards, or are they always going to stay kind of forward?
Your eye muscles can never fully relax.
But like in
unless
theory,
they-
because like the whole like
Like, if an eye muscle is paralyzed, then yes, you'd start to see double because you're getting two different fields of vision.
right.
But your eye muscles are not, like, even like, we'll put some in the dark with the BMG, and your eye muscles will hold gaze. Like, they'll never just be like completely relaxed. It's like technically right now I'm relaxed, but I'm not falling on the ground because eye muscles contracting to hold against gravity.
Right.
So, in theory, yes, like if you had a muscle that wasn't working, you'd be seeing double because you have an eye looking over here and the rest of the world over here, and you'd be seeing double, but your eyes technically shouldn't do that unless there's a pathology.
Okay, great.
I was gonna add to it, like, if you're asking more about like the way that they sit, like, it's not necessarily that the pupils are sitting directly like that. So when the eyes are sitting in the socket like this. They sit like this, but the eyeball is like this, at rest. So this muscle is naturally shorter, that's on the inside, and then directly behind it is the fovea. So directly behind, so it's not that the eyes are like this, where I'm like looking like that, it's just that the muscles let them sit in the canal like that, and then the eyes are a little bit.
So the pupils are always facing straight.
Yes.
At relax.
Yes.
Okay.
So would the entrance of optic nerve be kind of like at an angle behind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see here, oh, there we go, wrong way. Yeah, so it'll sit at that angle, but that doesn't necessarily mean the eyes are facing out, you know? The eyes will be facing relatively forward, but because the canal is sitting that way, the angles will pull, the muscles are gonna pull at a slight angle due to the anatomy. Great question though. Any other questions? No, fantastic. All right, so in cyclotorsion, what muscle is going to encyclotorch? The superior oblique. What muscle is going to excyclotorch? Killer. All right. What about adduction? What muscle is going to adduct the eye? Medial rectus. Abduction? Right. And then elevation and depression is pretty easy, superior. Pretty straightforward. All right.
Jen,
Yes, sir. Yep.
is elevation and depression, are they compounded by both what superior rectus and inferior oblique would be depression and then vice versa, correct?
Yeah, if it's straight up and straight down, it will be compound movements typically. Yeah, great question. Because they'll pull slightly at an angle, so it'll go in and out.
Yeah.
If the inferior oblique were to contract, it's going to pull it this way, and the superior oblique is going to pull it this way. So, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so we can see here also, we've got all of these Roman numerals here, and these are all of the cranial nerves that are going to innervate our eyes. I think. Now we'll see that. Now we'll watch it. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Hi guys, it's Mama here. Today I'm going to do a neuroanatomy video designed to make eye movements and
Can you guys hear? Try to turn it up. Yeah, it's good.
the muscles easier to understand. This video will cover the basics, including an introduction to eye movements, the anatomy of the orbit, and the main muscles you need to know about. This is part 1 of a 3-part video series. In the second video, we will be introducing a novel method to help make the actions of the muscles easier to understand. In the third video, we will look at cranial nerve palsies to put this into a clinical context. Let's begin by talking about those basic eye movements. In the anatomical position, both eyes look straight ahead. This is called the primary position of gaze. In elevation, the pupil moves upwards. In depression, the pupil moves downwards. In adduction, the pupil moves towards the nose. Remember this as the pupil being added to the nose. In abduction, the pupil moves away from the nose. You can remember this as the pupil being abducted or taken away. In torsion or internal rotation is the rotational movement of the eyeball towards the nose. Extorsion or external rotation is the rotation of the eyeball away from the nose. To understand how the muscles around the eye work, we need to understand the anatomy of the surrounding area. This is a horizontal cross-section through the head, showing the eyes from above. Here you can see the orbit, the triangular space where the eyeball and its extraocular muscles live. Note that the two medial walls are parallel to each other, but the natural walls are at a 45-degree angle. This will become important later on. Now let's talk about the muscles. There are 7 extraocular muscles, but only 6 act to move the eyeball itself. With we'll be demonstrating how they fit together from two different angles, from the front of the right eye and from above in cross-section. The 6 muscles include the 4 rectus muscles and the 2 obliques. The 4 rectus muscles all originate from the common tendinous ring at the back of the orbit, but insert onto the eyeball separately. They take their names from their insertions. The 4 muscles are the inferior rectus, which inserts inferiorly on the undersurface of the eyeball, the medial rectus, which inserts medially on the surface of the eyeball closest to the nose, the lateral rectus, which inserts laterally on the surface of the eyeball furthest from the nose, and the superior rectus, which inserts superiorly on the upper surface of the eyeball. The oblique muscles are more complex. They have different origins and insertions. We'll talk about the superior oblique first. It originates just next to the tendinous ring and inserts on the posterior superior surface of the eyeball. However, unlike the superior rectus, its path is not straight. From the surface of the eyeball, it runs anteriorly and medially toward the nose, passing through a fibrous pulley called the trochlea. It then continues posteriorly towards its origin at the back of the orbit. Because of the pulley, the muscle pulls its insertion point anteriorly and medially toward the trochlea, rather than posteriorly towards its origin. The inferior oblique, meanwhile, originates on the medial wall of the orbit below the trochlea and inserts on the posterior lateral surface of the eye. Like superior oblique, it pulls its insertion point anteriorly and medially. As a side note, the 7th extraocular muscle to be aware of is the levator palpebrae superioris. This is the muscle that works to elevate the eyelid. As it doesn't move the eye itself, we won't be talking about it too much in this video, but it does become relevant when we talk about cranial nerve palsies in video number 3. Let's go back to eye movements. Understanding which specific movements the rectus and oblique muscles are responsible for can be tricky. Particularly as in the real world, eye movements involve all 6 muscles acting together. To help simplify things, think of the muscles acting in pairs. The medial and lateral rectus muscles work as a pair to adduct and abduct the eye. The medial rectus adducts by pulling the eye closer to the nose, while the lateral rectus abducts by pulling it away. The superior and inferior rectus muscles work as a pair to elevate and depress the eye. The superior rectus elevates by pulling it upward, while the inferior rectus depresses by pulling it down. They work best in abduction, where the eye is looking away from the nose. To understand why this is, we need to return to the anatomical structure of the orbit. From above, we can see that the anatomical axis of the rectus muscles is halfway between the sagittal plane, represented by the medial wall, and 45 degrees, represented by the lateral wall. It does not match up with the line of sight in the primary position of gaze. However, when the eye is abducted by about 22.5 degrees, the line of sight coincides with the anatomical axis of the superior and inferior rectus muscles. At this point, the muscles are straight rather than kinked and may act as pure elevators and depressors. These muscles are therefore at their strongest when the eye is abducted rather than looking straight ahead. So that's the rectus muscles. But what about the obliques? The action of these muscles are more complex and can be the source of considerable confusion. In the next video, we'll be talking about the obliques and introducing a useful method devised by Dr. Paul Johns from St. George's Medical School to help you remember all this stuff. Why not take a look? See you next time. The superior and
Cool. So, she just recapped everything we just said. So we can see that because it sits at an angle, right, the superior rectus is going to be at its strongest position when the eye is slightly abducted by the lateral rectus. That way it's pulling in its natural, in its natural state, in its pull. Insertion. Cool. No. Alright, so the innervation of the eyes. We have 3 cranial nerves that are going to be innervating our Alright, and they are cranial nerve 3, cranial nerve 4, and cranial nerve 6. Who can tell me what cranial nerve 3 is? Cool. Who said that? Oculomotor. Alright, cranial nerve 3, oculomotor. Cranial nerve 4, without looking. Cranial nerve 4 is the... Anybody in head and neck right now? No? Somebody, I heard it.
Trochlear.
Trochlear nerve, alright. And then cranial nerve 6 is the... Starts with an A. Abducens nerve, sweet. So coming back here, alright. Cranial nerve 3, cranial nerve 4, and cranial nerve 3, cranial nerve 4, cranial nerve 6. Alright. I don't know why the Romans came up with it like that. That's true. Alright, so cranial nerve 4 and cranial nerve 6 will only innervate one nerve each. Cranial nerve 4, the trochlear nerve, is only going to innervate the superior oblique. And that is all this nerve is going to do. Cranial nerve 6 will innervate the lateral rectus, and that is all it's going to do. Everything else will be cranial nerve 3. Oculomotor will handle everything else, including the eyelid muscle, the levator palpebrae superioris that we saw earlier, will also be innervated by cranial nerve 3, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a little math problem here that we use sometimes to remember which one does which, and that is SO4, LR6, all over 3. I don't know if anybody liked math in college or in high school, but we're back to it. SO4, superior oblique, cranial nerve 4, lateral rectus, cranial nerve 6, and everything else will be cranial nerve 3, oculomotor. Alright? Who can tell me? No, not that one. Alright, who can tell me our little math problem? Mnemonic thing. Somebody new. Who's hearing this lecture for the first time? Alright, cool. Who can recite it for me? Alright.
SO4, LR3, LR6,
Alright. SO4, LR6, all over 3. What does that mean?
That is great question.
SO4? Yeah.
Superior oblique is cranial nerve 4, lateral rectus is cranial nerve 6, and the rest are cranial nerve 3.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So everything else will be cranial nerve 3. So when we have somebody that might have a palsy or a paralysis or an issue with one of these cranial nerves, let's say it's cranial nerve 6, very quickly we're going to be able to see if somebody has an issue with that nerve, because it only does one thing. It only abducts the eye. So if somebody has a palsy of cranial nerve 6, they're not going to be able to look to the side on one of their eyes. So very quickly we can see, okay, we've got an issue here. Same thing goes with all the other ones. We can very quickly tell using eye movements and eye tests what's going on. Yep.
So would the opposite eye still like move normally medially, and then the other one?
That's a great point. So what our eyes do, the cool thing about them is without us even trying, our eyes move together. We call that yoked. Like when bulls would pull stuff or when horses would pull stuff together, you put a yoke on them, right? So that they pull together at the same time. Our eyes will move in the same directions. So as cranial nerve 6 is abducting the eye, medial rectus on the other eye will be adducting the eye. So yes.
So it would like the one moving laterally would stop moving and medial would still be able to continue? Okay.
Yep. And we'll go through those as well, but great question. Yeah, very quickly we can see if something is going wrong because maybe one movement won't be able to occur. They won't be able to move their eye in certain directions. And so we can say, okay, well this one seems to be moving okay when we have them follow a target. And then we can see if they can't do it. Alright, so one other important thing to remember is that all of our superior muscles are innervated by the contralateral brainstem. Right? Contralateral means opposite side. So if we have a superior muscle such as the superior oblique, it will be innervated by the contralateral brainstem. Cranial nerve 4, I believe, is the only nerve that crosses over. It actually crosses over. wraps around. So this guy is going to be activating the opposite side brainstem when we turn it on. All the inferior muscles, as well as the medial and lateral rectuses, recti, are innervated by the same side brainstem. Yes?
So, what about superior rectus? Would that be the cranial nerve 3 but contralateral?
Yes.
So that was a cranial nerve 3 from the ipsilateral, but that guy's got cranial nerve.
Yep. So, superior muscles, contralateral, and that's an easy way to just remember. If it's superior, it's opposite side. If it's anything else, it's going to be the same side. Cool. Any questions there? Great questions. I love the questions, guys. Alright, so we've got a little chart here. We love charts. Superior muscle, superior rectus, superior oblique, contralateral. Everything else, ipsilateral. Cranial nerve 3 is going to do everything except for what cranial nerve 6 and cranial nerve 4 do. Anybody take a picture of that? We all good? Yep. You're just like taking a mental picture. What a challenge. Alright, cool. So, as we mentioned earlier, our eyes are yoked. Yes?
Did you go back?
One slide? Yeah, oh, go for it. I'll get out of the way.
I'll leave the other one.
Alright, cool. Sit. Alright, so, because we said that our eyes are yoked, meaning the eyes are going to move together in the same direction, they're actually going to be doing opposite movements. So as I adduct one eye, I will be abducting, abducting the other eye, right? If you look to your right, one eye is looking out and one eye is looking in, or the opposite. Okay? So do it, everybody look at your partner, but give them a side eye. Anybody on TikTok? The bombastic side eye, nobody? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Alright, so we know that muscles are going to be doing opposite things. So let's say if I look up and to the right. I know we haven't gone over this very well. Up and to the right. Everybody do it. See everybody looking at me. So look up and to the right. What muscles? Who can tell me what muscles are going to be doing that action? Up and to the right. Superior rectus and
lateral rectus.
and an inferior oblique. Okay, we'll go through that. So, right eye. Everybody imagine. Everybody look up and to your right. So it's going to be on a diagonal. Your right eye. What muscle is that?
Superior rectus.
Superior rectus. Left eye.
Superior rectus.
Inferior oblique. So that's going to take some practice, but we're going to run through those. So if we have a superior eye movement, we are going to have a superior muscle and an inferior muscle. If we have a lateral movement, we're going to have a medial and a lateral. And there's one exception to that, which is what we call vergence, or going cross-eyed, right? When our two medial rectuses with recti, I hate that word, are going to look in. But that's the only time. Everything else, we're going to have a superior and an inferior, and a rectus and an oblique. Yeah? Clear? Clear as mud? You got a question? Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like you said, both like one eye would move like superior rectus, the other eye was inferior. I thought it was the same eye because you're looking that way. Wouldn't it be moving like this?
That's why, yeah, right there.
The same
Yeah.
eye.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, you're good. So, alright. Let's say we're going this direction, right? So this is going to be up and to the right. We're going to have our superior rectus pulling our eye, our right eye, up and out. At the same time, left eye is going to be up and right. But the muscle that's going to be doing that is the inferior oblique. Yes?
Okay, so why would, let's go to the right eye.
Okay.
Let's go to superior to the right. You got superior rectus.
Yep.
How come you don't need lateral rectus to get to the moving over part?
Yeah, great question. Because the eye, and we'll there's a lot more going on too. It's not quite as simple.
All my questions are
Yeah, no, you're good. I like the way you're thinking, but the eyes also have, all of the muscles also have primary, secondary, and tertiary movements that you can see here. So they're not, all of them are not going to just do one sole movement, right? So because they're at an angle, the muscles are going to do slightly different actions. For all intents and purposes though, the superior rectus, as it pulls, is going to pull the eye this way. Is that making sense? So, superior and inferior, lateral and medial, they're always going to be paired together. A rectus with an oblique. Yeah, cool. So we can see here too. How many of you, this is the first time seeing a PNG? Alright, cool. This is one of the coolest pieces of
Really
technology.
expensive camera for your eyeballs. You
So-
can, keep in mind you don't need this. This is a very expensive machine. You can just use your own eyeballs to look at their eyeballs. Anyway, this is the movement he was talking about. If I just go up and right, well, that's not high enough, but if I go there, that's the movement he's talking about. Where the movement you're talking about with lateral rectus would be here. But you have to inhibit your other eye muscles to smoothly go in that direction. Does that make sense? Okay.
No, very, very cool. Alright, so go lateral.
Okay.
Yeah, try a lateral.
So someone tell me, I don't know if you guys can see over my phone, I can these come down. What muscle is his left eye using?
The left rectus, or the lateral rectus.
Good. His right eye?
Medial rectus.
Good. So the opposite eye muscle, the muscle that does the opposite action, has to be equally inhibited for you to do that action.
Oh, thank you. So the eyes are always going to be paired together, right? And the brain is going to be inhibiting muscles that are going to do the opposite of that. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. We're gonna get to that. So
Chip,
yes.
when you're, if he's looking up and to the right, his right eye is not activating lateral rectus at all, or is it minimally activating?
It will be slightly.
That's it.
All of your eye muscles have tiny secondary actions
Yeah.
to do eye muscles. But for the most part, like the actions that you guys are their primary action.
Because like, let's say within your eye movements, you could look here, but then you can also look here. So you can do small movements within like a cardinal vision, a cardinal area. And so you can turn on and off those muscles depending on how hard you want to look up at that angle. But yeah, great question. Cool, so let's see. We'll do that same movement again. So imagine if Binachi was looking to the left like we were doing, right? We said left eye was which muscle? Lateral rectus. Right eye was the medial rectus. All right. Here's a tough bonus question. What cranial nerves are going to be activated to move the lateral rectus on the left and the medial rectus on the right? Cranial nerves 6 and 3. Which was which?
You got it, okay.
Okay, give me a snap. Give me a snap. What's up? These guys are killing it back here. Very cool. So, a lot of this is honestly going to take a ton of practice. There are some students in neuro that have taken a long time to really be able to name those off super quick. And so if you're struggling right now to think of that, and you got to look at the notes, that's okay. Don't get worried. Don't get stressed. Because it takes a lot to be able to know, okay, if I'm looking this way, if I'm looking that way, which cranial nerve, which brain stem, which lobes. It could be a lot. Well, let's do a breakout then. So, we're going to give you guys a chance. Get in groups and assign your partner a direction of gaze. So you can look up and to the right, down and to the left, and then go through which eye muscles and which cranial nerves, and if you want a bonus, which brain stem as well. So, break.
Okay, we're gonna get started. We only have a few things left to go over. And then we're gonna end early because it's midterms, or hopefully end early, depending how it goes. Anyway, so you guys already saw the PNG. It's definitely something you don't need in the office. You're looking at initially how your patient's eyes look. So how do their pupil sizes look? Is one bigger, is one smaller? Do they have ptosis, which just means, can I even tell you what ptosis is before I was just going to tell you?
Creeping out.
Do they have a resting nystagmus? So a lot of times you put them in the dark, and they can't rely on, I'm going to stabilize, I'm just looking at this chair, and then my eyes don't move. Because some people will be like, I just feel like my eyes are moving all the time. But if you put them in the dark, they don't have the ability to fixate on something, so they can have a nystagmus. Do they have a hippus? Which can someone tell me what a hippus is? Who's not an officer? It's okay if you don't know, I don't know if we've actually talked about this, but hippus is just when your pupils dilate and constrict like over. Okay, before we look at anything, we want to know if our patients can fixate on a target. So it's called gaze, gaze fixation. If you can't fixate on a target, the odds that you can do any of your other eye movements well is pretty low. So there's actually these neural integrators in your pons and your medulla that help you gaze fixate. There's 4 total, 2 on each side. Your horizontal ones are in your pons, your vertical ones are in your midbrain. So we want to do this with them in the dark, so we can just say, hey, look all the way to your left in the dark, and can they maintain that gaze? And then we can also do it in light with like our thumb or a sticker or wall, whatever it is. We want to see if they can do that, because if they can't maintain gaze, then their other eye movements, like I said, are probably going to be pretty rocky. But if you guys want to know more about the neural integrator, that's pretty much where your gaze stabilization comes from. Take your shots this one. Oh, can someone tell me the 6 fundamental eye movements that has been taken? That's not an officer. I'll take someone who's already been here.
Like up, down, left, right.
Technically, it does include all those things, so you wouldn't be wrong. But if I'm, how do I give you a hint? If I have to jump to something, if I have to jump to a target, it has a name. Whereas if I'm
Tracking.
tracking, yeah, if I'm tracking, that has a name. So, someone who knows that, because I'm terrible at giving hints, and I'm just going to either tell you.
Pursuits, saccades, OPKs, COR, VOR. Convergence.
There you go.
Convergence.
Okay, so these are our 6 fundamental eye movements. Pursuit, saccades, OPK, which we'll see in a second, VOR, COR, and vergence. Vergence is convergence and divergence. So can your eyes come in smoothly and can they go out smoothly? Okay, pursuits. So this is gearing up to talk about OPKs, which have pursuits and saccades within the movement themselves. Pursuits are known as your slow phase. It's when you track something. So it's different than like, I don't know if you guys were ever little kids and you just had your hand on the window and looked at all the lines passing by, or I was just a weird child. You shook your head and makes me laugh. But the function of a pursuit is to be able to stabilize on an object without having any, we call them saccadic intrusion. So if I'm following something and my eyes kind of jump off the target either back or forward and then jump back to the target, that is an inability to pursue. And that would be coming from your ipsilateral parietal. Can I have a person of any kind? Sure. Do you have any eye issues?
I have at least
Okay, great. Not great, but you know, it's awesome. Yeah, I know, it's just watch, but it's not can have catch-up saccades, so his eyes are falling behind and he jumps, and plays back to the target. And then you can also have square wave jerks. They're actually, your eyes don't move to square. That took me longer than it should have to actually figure out. But it's just because how it looks on a graph, it'll literally form a square. Okay, saccades, which are your quick phase. The function of this is to bring the object of interest onto the fovea rather quickly. And it's coming from your contralateral frontal lobe. So here's how it works. So can I have you look at my nose, and then whichever thumb moves, I'm going to jump with your eyes, okay? Back. You can do it up and down. And then you can also do, if you want to really stress the system, how it's going, you can also do any saccades. So you're going to have them jump to the thumb that doesn't move. Yeah. I don't know what's coming. But for the most part, there wasn't like gross. Yeah. So these you're looking for latency, speed, and if it's hypometric or hypermetric. So if it's hypometric, their eyes are going to saccade and stop short of the target. If it's hypermetric, their eyes are going to jump past the target and then have to backtrack to the target. Okay. This typically doesn't make people feel good just because it's a lot of stimulus for your brain. And by the time people get to this, they've already done the other 1 million eye movements. So by the time they get to this, they're like, I don't feel good, I'm just going to close my eyes and pretend it's over. So I just want you to look ahead and just pretend like you're watching TV, like your eyes move on and on. So this is a reflex, his eyes should be doing this. Again, you can do it up and down, so same thing up and down. Count each stripe as they go with your eyes. So try and look at each white stripe as it passes. So I wanted to see if you could do it reflexively, and maybe I just didn't describe it well, and that's why I couldn't. But then, if you ask your patient to do it, it's volitional, which is a little different. They need more frontal lobe activation to get that eye movement started. So you're looking how, like, if it's there, first of all, like to be able to inhibit that movement is really hard. Like if you have a patient who's just not moving their eyes at all, that is really hard to do. So like, yes, you could have explained it wrong, and they're just like, oh, I just thought you wanted me to like zone out. And you're like, well, yeah, I could have probably used different words. But there are some patients that like they just don't have it at all. But you could also do this with them standing, and they might sway one way or the other. Because if I pull my OPK upwards, my patient's going to feel like they're, not my patient, still a human, might feel like he's falling forward, so he's going to pull himself backwards. Because when you're falling forward, which way does the world go in relation to you?
Backwards.
If I'm falling forward, which way are my eyes going? I'll face you so you can see if I'm falling forward. Which way am I going? Okay, so my world's going up as I'm falling forward. So if I pull my OPK up, I feel like I'm falling forward. So my body's going, well, I don't want to face plant, so I'm going to pull myself back up. So I have a Parkinson's patient right now, and I pull the OPK up because he has this like camtiformic posturing, which is what the posturing is called in Parkinson's. And I pull it up so that he feels like he's falling more forward and pulls himself back up. Okay. That's pretty much what I just said. If you have any sort of dizziness, don't. can't see any of you doing it, so either you're hitting or. Okay, which way is the slow face? So which way is the pursuit? I'm gonna stop that because it's actually confusing. Yeah, so which way is the saccade? Good, not to the right. Okay, so then which side of the parietal lobe? If your slow face is where? Okay, so which parietal lobe? Good. So it's your ipsilateral parietal lobe. And then which frontal lobe? So your saccade is which way? So saccade is which way? Left. So what frontal lobe? It's opposite frontal lobe. So it's ipsilateral parietal lobe for pursuits, and then for saccades, it's contralateral. So when I was having you do this, let me go this way. So you jumped, which frontal lobe? So you jumped to the left. It would be your right frontal lobe. Whereas if I have you go follow it, have you go this way, that's your ipsilateral parietal. So I'd be your left frontal lobe.
Those are two different things. It's like there's
Yeah, two different.
So this one is so this one is
Yes, good thought.
you're guys lazy.
I clean my eye there. Okay, so I am actually just gonna have you guys, I don't know how to do this, but actually, you guys can break out with each other, and I want you guys to just do saccades and anti-saccades and pursuits. And then actually, this is what versions looks like. I realized I didn't tell you that. Go ahead. What did you guys see? I love that you guys are talking so quietly, and I'm just going to look at you until it gets louder. You want me to do it again?
Convergence was fairly good.
Say all your words again.
His right was a little less responsive, it seemed.
Yeah, so he kind of has a convergence insufficiency, like one of his eyes lag, and then he doesn't really diverge either. So. Yeah. Actually got better. Convergence is hard for him. But when you're doing convergence divergence, your eyes should be smooth and symmetrical. Like it shouldn't be like, oh, this one, oh, I'll catch up. Like smooth and symmetrical.
James,
Um,
what did you say about your eye when you first walked in?
So if you look over there, I can view that.
Okay, so you have a little bit of a unyoked.
So like I can turn my right eye in without moving it up that.
Oh.
Yeah, so his
That's
Both parties, right?
Yeah.
Kayla, if you're watching when you're doing saccades, his eyes aren't yoked, so they were going boom boom, boom boom, boom boom, boom boom. And so I think his left eye is already pulling in just a little extra, so when you
That's his
can,
right.
what?
That's his right.
On the farthest side is his left eye. Yeah.
If you look from here, his right eye is.
It's like you're looking at him.
Yeah, no, I know.
Cool, so his left eye pulls in medially, and so when you do convergence, his left eye gets there sooner because I think his left eye's already pulled in. And his right eye is insufficient, like you're saying.
Yeah, sure.
I spiked over.
Right now? All the time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because his eyes aren't yoked. Did you ever get that corrected, James? Did they have
I used
glasses?
to wear glasses.
Yeah.
Can you yoke me, man?
I can try. I don't know how to do that, but I'm sure we could try to figure it
But
out.
again,
You can do
Huh?
anything.
just do pursuit.
I would imagine, yeah, you just gotta target practice, but because that's what they try to do with kids, is if their eyes aren't yoked, they'll put in this prism so that the kid like avoids looking at the prism, and it'll pull the eye out so it's not converging. But then it just creates all these other issues because it's like forcing the eye out, and then you get a kid that can unyolk his eyes and he can look one side one way.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you guys break out and try the 6 eye movements, and then you'll tell me what fun. Ready, set, go. Cool.
So
Okay, because I was like, I'm very young and I feel like that would influence it. The first time I was there. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Pretty bad.
I was like, I wonder if that
No, she froze on it. And then I went backwards and said, yeah, it's not that bad.
One day? It's not bad.
Shop.
What's the shop? Oh, this shop here?
Tuesday Coffee. The shop that I went back and go to all the time. Tuesday Coffee shop. We've never been there. Best coffee.
You work at Tuesday? It's so cute in there.
It depends. Everybody thinks he's married to one of our managers, and it's not. But there is a wife, and she's awesome, and she does.
I've never been. I know what it is.
Yeah. It's right next to me. You just go down. It is. So if you
I've also heard that.
do you live in our super fun garage?
I got a married person, or I just
You should go there. We should all go there.
I'll do it.
Okay, great. Let's do this. I'm working Sunday. I think 8 to 12. Anyways, I went back to Tuesday. I had everything turned over. It just looks like a little pastry this big, and then nothing. That's my diet. It has everything but bacon seasoning on top, and then it has cream cheese.
Okay, we check out too. What do you used to drink this?
Oh, the strawberry latte is the best thing on the menu I've ever had. No, I promise you, it's something different because I used to hate fruity latte. I'm a flower latte. Yeah, I'm a big black flower, big rose latte. But we do a lavender vanilla, which is very good. I just want sweet lavender. Like I just want lavender.
Yeah, we used to. Those were my favorite ones. Should I make the worst?
I'm pushing for lavender lemonade.
Yes.
No, it's just like lemonade. You put
Oh,
lavender flavor.
I think you meant
And
just.
then I'm gonna get, I want to say edible glitter. So it's like sparkly for the summer. Wouldn't that be so fun?
That would sound awesome. Yeah.
And I was talking to Morgan, my owner's wife, and she was like, "Is that our snack?" I'm like, "It's the classiest thing you can get. So I'm gonna order some, and I'm gonna show them.
Yeah, there'd be a lot. They don't take it.
Stuff for lavender lattes, it's like this. That's good, why don't I add that? Why don't
Yeah, they
you
would take
take
it on the menu. Just set up a pop-up shop.
I told him actually. He said, "If you don't do this, I will put a table right outside Tuesday and start selling." I make more money than that.
Oh, yeah. First thing.
We have tea and we have apple juice, so you can just make it. We don't have like medicine balls with lemonade and peach and mango tea. We don't have those things.
I think theirs was like lemonade, water.
That's actually something else.
Oh yeah, peach tea. And that was.
When you give me physical affection, I'm like,
I'm not the physical pleasure.
and I am.
So is mine, and I'm like, stop. Like, stop. And what about it? I'm just like, not in the mood, like,
Like a lavender sugar.
I think it's because you have a little bit of
It's
say.
great. It's a good idea.
I just don't like to know. Like, if I'm in the mood for it, great. If I'm not,
Touch me all day long, all day. Touch me. Are we using this again, or should I move this back up?
well, yeah, because you're gonna have to spin it.
Are we starting? Okay, ready, we're gonna start.
Like 6 to 8 shots. I would start with it.
Ready? Okay. optic reflex. So the function is to keep the fovea of the eye fixated on the target during head movement. So if I'm running to catch a ball, my VOR kicks in to focus on that ball so that I can line up to catch that ball. Or if there's a ball coming towards me and I have to catch it, it's going to track that ball through space. That's your VOR. So it's to keep the object moving or head movement, any movement on the fovea of the eye. Is that correct? Would a ball moving be an object to me? No, it's a What? No? You're disagreeing?
A ball moving,
Yeah.
if you're tracking it, it wouldn't be an object.
Right, it'd be a VOR. Optic is more movement.
Give me a second to check that.
Yeah. I think that maybe we should change this definition a little bit because did we leave okay?
Yeah.
I was just talking about the ball flying through the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a pursuit. Yeah.
It's just pursuit. Right, because there's no movement at all. Just
Even if
pursuit.
you move your head a little bit.
Right.
What if you're fixated?
What if you're fixated on the ball? That's just pursuit. So if I'm just doing this with no head movement, it's just pursuit. But even if she's saying, even if there's a little head movement, there's probably still just going to be pursuit. But when I'm moving and the ball's moving, that's a VOR. Yeah. Sorry, I went too far there. Yeah. Okay, so the lobes integrating are the vestibular apparatus in your ear, and your cerebellum, your pons, and midbrain. So how do you test it? This is a hard one to test without a EMG because to properly test it, you have to test it in the dark. If I spin you in a chair and it's not in the dark, your eyes are going to fixate on the world around itself, and that's going to be what we call an optokinetic. Opto meaning seeing, kinetic seeing. So can I get a Magente 4 or 5? Somebody? Good. That wants to spin in the chair. Okay. Do you have anything I need to know about?
You creepy things with that.
I can show you all different ones.
I want to see your.
Okay, you go ahead.
It's so scary.
You just tell me I'll be able to
You need to fix that?
Perfect.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah, I really have a lot of problems.
All right.
Everything, yes, okay.
Can you stop moving your hands? Look straight ahead. Look straight ahead. Yeah. Okay. What are you doing with your eyes?
Okay, so I can, if I want,
This
independently.
What's up with all this weirdness? Does it hurt your brain? It doesn't.
everything is
Okay.
kind of.
All right. So can we?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
find it. All that, you know, you have to-
Okay. Nice. Okay. And I'm going to read the record. You ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Not yet.
So can you see light when you do the bottom line?
There might be a tip by my nose. Perhaps. That guy.
Okay. Most people. So when I spin him, what is being activated when I spin him? The vestibular system. Great. So we have different canals that do different things. The vestibular system. I'm going to activate which canal if I rotate him to the right. The right horizontal. Great. Ready?
Right.
Oh man. But does it look bad? Okay, there's a little bit. It's not as much as I would like it to be, but you're going to
My
enjoy.
light takes a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit more light.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think that's okay. There's like kind of some like
Yeah, that shouldn't mess it. So you get a little bit, but basically what you're looking for is that pop and that snap back. Boom, 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 boom. You're looking for it in the stack. This is fun. So I'm gonna have Ben step down, and I'm gonna use a different patient. Sorry, was that too much in the dark?
I didn't run it up.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's because your VOR is not functioning. So his vestibular system was not helping him track through space. So he didn't know where he was. He didn't know if he was facing this way, or that way. He wasn't able to map that in space. So maybe we can play around with treating him. What's up?
So you do want to see it on BK, or you don't?
You want to see it in status. So now I'm going to skip ahead real fast to what we call cervical ocular reflex. This is only present when you're a baby, the brain learns to inhibit it, but sometimes if we have certain pathologies, this reflex become uninhibited and it can mess up the world. Okay. Good. So a cervical ocular reflex is turning only the neck. So I isolate the head to not activate the vestibular system, and then rotate the body. So he's good. A cervical ocular reflex would look exactly the same as his optic neck. It would be in nystagmus. I might still have one. A while back, a year ago, I had one. We tried to fix it, but I've been having issues lately. So just to go back, the cervical ocular reflex is to keep the fovea of the eye fixated on the target during neck movement without that. So just that. I don't know. I think the primitive reflex is to, what's the function of it? Kelly, function of cervical ocular reflex for babies? Is it to locate the nipple?
Say it again.
What's the function of the cervical ocular reflex in babies?
In babies as opposed to in adults?
Yeah, because we inhibit it in adults. We don't need it in adults. I think it's to.
You can't lift your head.
Right, exactly. You can't move your head, so I think it's to keep your. Yeah, I agree. I think it's to keep your eyes fixated on like different objects that are moving around.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. What's up?
So what is supposed? Okay, you lost me somewhere.
I lost you. Okay, let's break it down. Who is anybody else lost?
All right, just me.
Okay, cool. That's okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. They're all lost. They're all lost.
Okay, so this movement is you're supposed to see the nystagmus, right?
Yeah.
Then we go to isolate this, just rotate the body.
Right.
You're supposed to see the same nystagmus.
You would see it if it was uninhibited. But a proper human, proper adult, should not have a COR.
So they should just stay still.
They should stay still just like he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but if they had a positive COR, you would see the evoked nystagmus.
And so positive. I don't know what positive negative means, but
So if you do a negative, if you have a negative test, it means it's not there. So that means that it's healthy. But typically, if you have a positive test, that means there's something dysfunctional. So a positive looks like, so a positive COR would look like this. Just like that.
It's the opposite of what a VOR is, right? Because a VOR, it's trying to fixate so it keeps on doing nystagmus. Is that correct?
It's the same.
Wait, I thought you said you had to have nystagmus to do in the VOR.
You should have a nystagmus
Right.
in the dark
Right.
with a VOR.
Right.
COR is
But not in
very,
COR.
what?
But not in COR.
You should not have a nystagmus
In the
in
COR.
the COR. I see what you're saying.
So
The
it's-
positive negatives are opposite. Yes. Yeah. So a negative VOR test would be nystagmus. A positive VOR test is what he had, which is reduced nystagmus. So when I turned him in the dark, he doesn't have nystagmus.
Right.
So that's a positive test, meaning he has an issue with his VOR.
Right.
James,
Right,
one
so-
second.
sorry. And then like so a baby does not have if a baby was sitting right there and did this test, their eyes would do that.
Yes.
As opposed to staying straight, which is what an adult eyes
Yes.
should do.
Correct.
And whatever the reason is. for
Yeah,
that.
whatever reason it is, yes. Yeah, that's what happens. So if the baby's body turns without its head turning, it'll keep the eyes on the target. Daniel?
Yeah, and just by the way, just worth pointing out that when you're testing someone with a BMG, to fully make sure that they're completely in the dark so you don't get a false positive. So if they have that point of focus, that light that as a point of focus, it could look like a false COR.
Yeah.
It could look like a COR, but it's really not a COR.
Yeah.
It's just that VOR because they're focusing on point away.
Okay. So let's go back real fast. VOR. Explain it to me.
There should be, or VOR is vestibular ocular reflex. You're spinning the patient. There should be a nystagmus both in the light and in the dark.
Yeah, and what's the function of it?
It is like fixation on the target and like spatial awareness.
Yeah, great. So okay, so now, James, see over.
I don't know.
Okay. Can you say VOR like she just did?
Can I repeat what you just said?
Or can you explain it in your own words? I would love you to get there.
Okay, so in VOR, you're spinning the patient either in the light or the dark, and that is, you should see a nystagmus in the eyes.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is to be able to, like, fix a target.
Fixate on the target.
Fixate on a target.
Bingo. That's it. It's that. So I will add one little tweak to what you said. If you're testing in the light, the eyes open like this, all I'm checking is his reflexive optokinetics, his reflexive OPKs. Because his eyes have something to target on, so they're going to pick something to stabilize him, to show him where he is in space. So Ben relies very heavily on his eye movements to understand where he is in space. And the second you take his eyes out of the equation, he gets lost. Meaning he has reduced proprioception from his vestibular system, from his spinal system. And I bet if he closed his eyes and tried to walk around this room, he'd have a lot of connectivity. Because when we don't know where we are in space, if we have one of our 4 systems that tell us where we are in space, hypo functioning, we ramp up the other ones. So remember that diagram where it's like the eyeballs are up here, the cerebellum, the parietal lobe, and the postural system? Have you guys seen that picture? It's Ben's favorite picture. I love that picture.
And I guess it's ironic now, isn't it?
It is ironic. So basically, we have our eyes contributing to our vestibular system. We have our cerebellar contributing to our vestibular system. We have our vestibular system contributing to our proprioception, and we have our posture system contributing to our proprioception. So if our eyes are hypo-functioning, those 3 other categories start hyper-functioning. So if my eyes go down and my posture system increases, what's that going to create?
Good posture.
What?
Good posture.
Good posture?
Tight posture.
Tight posture. So it's going to create, because to increase proprioception, our muscles increase tension to add more proprioceptions to the joint to get us further information as to where we are in space. So my patient comes in with terrible suboccipital pain, and I keep adjusting him, I keep adjusting him, I keep adjusting him. Why is their neck still hurt? Well, if you look at their eyes, maybe they're like Ben. Every time they close their eyes, they don't know where they are in space, so that his neck tightens, and he increases his postural system, which then ends up hurting because his eyes are hypofunction. Okay.
Where do you go to help them find out where he is exactly?
Where do you do that?
Yeah, like what's your next step? What do you think you do?
Okay. So you have to get his VOR turned back on. So probably I would start with the gate state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you look at the camera right there. And I'm going to rotate his head and get his eyes tracking the target in a small, micromanaged way. Because typically, if the brain can't do something big, it's because it doesn't have the energy to. So if you can get the brain to do something small, that same thing small, maybe you can stepwise get it to grow stronger and stronger and stronger to do that same thing big. Like workout. Right. You can't, or like a split. I can't just split, you know. I gotta stretch, I gotta get, you know, that's how I think about it. What's that? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So VOR, proper test has to be in the dark, and it should be just an autonomic, responsive nystagmus. Okay? OPK, optokinetic, opto meaning seeing, kinetic meaning movement. or COR test. Okay, makes sense? It took me forever to get this. It's okay if you don't get it right now. We can keep talking about it. Questions? Move on? Okay. Oh, sweet. So, virgins, real fast. Didn't you teach virgins already?
Yeah, but it's fine, go ahead.
Okay. So, virgins, keep the target in focus at various distances. So, I come out here. Virgins is about 2 to 3 feet. So, the second I pass that, he's going to start converging. He's going to bring his eyes in. Wow. This
It's gonna be converged, not well.
no. Sorry, man. That's right.
Holy.
Wow, you really are late on that.
That's on my whole story.
Is this hurt your head? Like right at the area, yes. Yeah. Here. And then this would be sideways. So divergence is a parasympathetic expression. Think about staring at a sunset. How does that make you feel? Parasympathetic. If I were to get right up in your face, how does that make you feel? Most people don't like that. Carissa, did you think about what I said? Oh, we figured out.
Yeah, see, that's
The pursuit. Yeah. You know what I can't figure out? I was thinking about this. Birds. Okay.
Birds?
They're not real.
Just in general, they're not real.
Birds work for the bourgeoisie.
No, chickens. Have you ever seen somebody take the body of a chicken and just move it around? Yeah, I can't decide if that is a vestibular ocular reflex or cervical ocular reflex or a vestibular cervical reflex. Yeah, because their head isn't moving through space. This, I will talk about this later. Okay, so break out, test people's convergence, divergence. If you want to come down here, you can test their VOR, their COR. We can take turns doing that. And then we'll say goodnight and love you, and then we'll see you later. Okay, let's go.